all of a sudden I got a call at work one day, and it was my mum, and she just, she just told me that the doctors had found cancer in her tongue, so mouth cancer. It's one of the worst ones you can get. I didn't realise how bad it was at the time. The way Mum explained it to me, she really dumbed it down, and made me feel like it really wasn't anything to worry about. And that's, that affected me in a very deep way that I didn't understand at the time at all. And that's when I really fell off. It was gradual, but I couldn't see it happening in front of me. It just kind of snuck up, and then all of a sudden I was in a massive hole. So my anxiety started to peak. And during the year before, when I was doing really well, there was a bit of cocaine use, but it was just recreational, and I really enjoyed it. At the time, it wasn't a harmful thing at all. And, with Mum being sick, I was, at the time I didn't know, but I was very scared and in deep emotional pain. I started smoking more. I started to detach myself from people, from relationships. It was almost like a self-sabotage thing, and I didn't even see myself doing it until it was too late. I turned more to cocaine to numb myself, to get out of the reality, and to start feeling better. I started to lose weight. I stopped exercising. I started to steal money from friends to pay for my habit. I started getting really bad anxiety attacks. The cocaine habit was very unhealthy, so it was every couple of days, talking a gram or two, staying up late, real late, smashing it in a few hours, and going to work just not in a good way. It got to the point where I was calling in sick. I was missing paying rent, wasn't paying my bills. Eventually I lost my unit. I moved into my father's at like 35 years of age. And from there, I really crumbled completely. I began depression, like really set in. I was suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore. It was a deep, dark depression. And then, the paranoia. I remember just getting super sensitive, hypersensitive to noise, to the point where I would wake up in the morning and I'd hear the birds chirping outside my window at 5 o'clock in the morning or something, and I would be literally petrified. I would have to have the covers up over my head for hours on end. At this point, I was taking 28 milligrams of Valium a day just to get by. I wasn't working. And then I was taken to a psychiatrist, and he put me on, it's internationally known as Paxam. I always get the name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's clonazepam. It's a benzodiazepine, and it's 10 times stronger than Valium. That's what the psychiatrist told me. And essentially it was, going to make my anxiety go away. had me on antidepressants as well. This is like the 5th bloody amount I've taken. So I was at the point where I was taking the highest benzodiazepine, which is a tranquilizer for humans, the highest consumption for humans, which was 40 milligrams a day. Essentially, I was a zombie. But, even taking these drugs, I was still highly anxious, completely depressed, disconnected from everything, had zero passion for anything in life, just numb, didn't feel a thing. And during this period, my mum is dealing with life-threatening, end-of-life cancer, and she's protecting me from her pain. I wasn't there for her as much as I should have been. That's as clear as day. And I've got to live with that. Right. Yeah, so I wasn't functioning very well at the time at all. And Mum was beginning to have operations in Brisbane for her cancer surgery, and being down there with my sister and speaking to the doctors beforehand, and them saying she might not come out of this. They had to remove her tongue basically to try and save her life, and so that's a very, very dangerous operation. You have to break the jaw. And it was complicated surgery. Mum, she had back-to-back surgeries. I think it was 15 plus hours. And that wasn't the end of it either. She had to go back and have more. So as I said, they cut her tongue out. So she had to relearn how to speak again, because they had to take skin off her thigh to make a flap as a tongue for her to be able to speak. So she couldn't eat. She was just on like liquid food, like a Sustagen, hospital grade Sustagen, for the last 3 years of her life. No food. So imagine taking your mum out to dinner for her birthday or Christmas, and whole family's there, and your mum's sitting there and she can't eat, and everyone else is enjoying a meal. Those memories will they'll sit with me forever. So yeah, she was on basically heroin from the hospital, just for pain relief for the last years of her life. She lost she looked like a skeleton. She lost like half her weight. She aged like 30 years, so she was in her mid-60s, and she looked like she was in her early 90s kind of thing. And it's really hard for her to have to deal with, and it's very hard for the people in her life that are the closest. It's very hard for them to deal with as well. And I wasn't coping at all with all this. So yeah. Look, Mum would protect me from what she was going through, so she wouldn't talk to me about any of her fears. She wouldn't get on the phone crying. She wouldn't feel sorry for herself. She didn't want to affect me in any way, because she knew I was suffering already with what I was going through. you know, she was so strong. She never complained once. Just such a awesome example of how to just get on with it when life gives you the worst hand possible. And for me, I felt like I was protecting her from not letting her know how bad I was getting on with life. I didn't want to be around at all. So, she fought so hard. And, obviously when she could come up, she would. And, when I was able to, I'd go down there. But more often than not, I couldn't drive down there. So whenever we met up, it was just, because the bond between the mother and son, especially mum and me, whew, nothing closer. So when we would meet, it'd be very emotional and sad, and all she'd want was for me just to be pain-free, just so I could live life fully without any anxiety or depression or, I know, none of that's possible. We're all going to go through hard times, but just to be able to feel and to live again and to love and, all the good things in life. That's what she wanted, all the good things in life. My mum transitioned on the 21st of November 2017. And I say transitioned because what is energy may never die. And, it was terribly sad. It still is. To be without your mum is just horrible. But she's still with me. I know that clear as day, and I'll go into stories about that through my psychedelic use for therapy. So yeah, I had a main mission now, and that was to get healthy, because that's what my mum wanted. That was her last wish, and I promised her that I would. All right, so I had to get healthy mentally, and then physically. I had to get off those benzodiazepines. That's going to be a video. That's a whole video for another day, because that is, I should be dead. But, thanks to my sister, she bought me the David Goggins Can't Hurt Me book. And that gave me the inner strength to get off those evil pills. But that's, like I said, that's a huge story for another day, because that went on for years to taper off and then to withdraw off those things. Still, I still suffer physically from that dependence every day. I have nerve pain. But yeah, we'll make another video about that. So, I had a lot of time on my hands because I wasn't well. And I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts. And I heard about Paul Stamets, who is a mycologist. And I started, he started talking about his story of psilocybin mushrooms, taking magic mushrooms. He didn't know much about them. And his first story of mushrooms is epic, and I encourage you to go and find that online. But I'll tell you about it the best I can from what I remember. Paul was young. He was, I think, just about 20 or something, and he had 10 grams of, I'm pretty sure they were cubensis mushrooms. So 5 grams is really pretty strong, so 10 grams is, he's going to have a big day. So essentially, he set off out into like a rainforest, or just out into the woods, and he noticed a massive storm coming over. So he climbed this big tree. And as he was climbing this tree, he felt himself getting higher, but also psychedelically higher. And this massive storm came over, and it was a big lightning storm. So Paul was seeing fractals and all this imagery and visions, and he realized that this tree was an anchor to life for him, to the center of the universe. It was connecting him to the center of the universe. So he was holding on to this tree for all his might throughout this massive storm. And he was seeing, like I said, fractals and things, and just, huge visions distorted. But something came to him in his mind, and Paul suffered stuttering all his life. And for whatever reason, whether it was the intelligence of the mycelium, the mushrooms, he began to tell himself how silly it was to stutter. So over and over in his mind, he said hundreds, even thousands of times, he said, "Stop stammering, stop stammering, stop stammering." And, for hours on end, it must have been. So he must have had some pretty profound insights and, massive, deep, emotional, primal experience he would have had. And climbed down the tree, went back home, had something to eat, fell asleep, woke up the next morning and went for a walk into town. As he was walking into town, he noticed the girl in his school who he had a massive crush on was walking towards him. And because he was always stammering, always self-conscious about fumbling over his words and looking like an idiot, he always looked down. He would never look up because he wanted to avoid making eye contact. Anyway, this morning he's walking along. The girl's walking towards him, and she says, "Good morning, Paul, how you doing?" And he looks up, and he says, "Good morning. I'm doing very well, thank you." And that was the first time he stopped stammering, and he never did again, which I just thought was a brilliant story, and he swears by it. And I thought there was something to this. So I began to, find alternate ways of healing. And so I started to listen to all these different podcasts. I researched Dennis McKenna, Terence McKenna, Graham Hancock, and eventually I stumbled onto Roland Griffiths, who was the head neuropsychopharmacologist at Johns Hopkins Institute. And I think it was just a TED talk, like a 15-minute TED talk on. It was on magic mushrooms and the psychoactive compound psilocybin, and it was an end-of-life study for cancer patients. And the findings in there were remarkable, to say the least. So I started to think about my mum, and about all the contemplations that she would have had in her life, about her children, her past, her future, that she was facing certain death just around the corner. Must have been so many tears, so many lonely nights, because she lived on her own, and how she purposefully protected me from her pain. This Johns Hopkins study of 51 cancer patients with, life-threatening disease, they all suffered badly from end-of-life stress. So at the end of these studies, 92% had a clinical reduction in depression of 92% of patients had a clinical reduction in depression, and 76% for anxiety, which I just thought was remarkable. And at the 6-month follow-up, the overall clinical response in reduction of anxiety was 83% and 78% for depression. And I just could not believe that. Initially, I remember a deep wave of sadness came over me because I knew it was too late to help relieve my mother's suffering. But at the same time, I realised that I may have found the very thing that could save my life. It could help me get over anxiety, severe anxiety and depression, and make me want to live again. And also a huge, thought that I had was that, very sad, mum is gone, but I have the potential to help so many who suffer in such a suffocating way in their life. So I began to devour any and all information I could on psychedelics, the vast history of the cultural use around the world to essentially heal and reconnect mind, body, and the spirit. So I highly recommend Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, the new science on psychedelics. He goes through his personal experiences from seeking out different psychedelics and how it affected him in his life and how he could transcend certain things. Amazing. Essentially this led me to studying psychedelic assisted therapy. And I'm actually studying that at the moment through Psychedelic Support. Fantastic online courses, just right at the top of their game. Brilliant stuff. Specializing in psilocybin effects, neurobiology, and therapeutic applications. So that's how I discovered the therapeutic use of psychedelic drugs. This video has gone way too long. Thanks for listening. There's going to be lots more information. I'm going to talk about the medications that the health system had me on to try and overcome my anxiety and depression, and then getting off those. It's a story you don't want to miss. And I know a lot of you are going through or have gone through the same. So it could help a lot of people with the information that I'm going to release there about my journey to get over that. And then eventually I'll talk about my psychedelic use to overcome the anxiety and depression and the reconnection I had with my mother. Don't want to miss those. I've got heaps of content, so thanks for listening. There's going to be heaps more. Get out of your head and into your heart. If you're not making anyone else's life better, you're really just wasting your time. So do good out there. If someone needs help, extend your hand, and just do things from the heart. Okay, try and drop into your heart every now and then, and just feel your body. Eventually you will hear some whispers. I'm probably going on a bit now, but I just wish you all the best, all the love, and I'll be back soon. Take care.